when we want people to change, it's almost selfish that you expect someone to become the version that we envision for them, and then if they fail to do so, then it just actually creates resentment and hate
and
and
you get
disappointment.
disappointed. But
Exactly.
but that's like completely on you, because we
Yeah.
cannot change others. We can't. We can only change ourselves. We can be the change you want to see in others. You can lead by example for the world and others, but you cannot change them.
The other day I was just scrolling on LinkedIn and I came across this post from Alex Brogan, and he was talking about the 10 of the most powerful paradoxes of modern life. So I thought about maybe we can just go through the paradoxes and just give our thought on the different kind of paradoxes that he has listed. I went through it and I think it's very interesting. That could trigger a lot of interesting discussions. So
Yeah,
let's do that.
dive into it.
Yeah.
I'm also really interested in all these kind of theories and paradoxes, because I've read so many, like, there's the laws, like the Murphy laws and all that, all the paradox theories that you can ponder on. And I feel like they have a lot of wisdom in it. And also sometimes you can just use them to like improve your own life, and that, like, to reflect back on, okay, like that makes sense. How can I now apply this?
Yeah, and I think it, like, the way people interpret it can be very different from person to person. So let's dive into it. Do you want to take the first one?
Go ahead. Ladies first.
But we talked about it. You take the resistance paradox. That was the first one.
Does it have to be the first one?
It's okay. We can.
Okay,
We are flexible. We can just start with number 2, which makes total sense.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay. So that one was the scarcity paradox.
Scarcity paradox.
Yeah. So what he wrote about it is that the more available something is, the less we want it. What's scarce is deemed valuable. What's abundant is deemed worthless. In reality, utility doesn't always follow scarcity. And he also mentioned something: abundant pleasures can be our most valuable pleasures, and vice versa. Okay, I can go on it if you want. Or...
Yeah, go on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give my thoughts at the end.
Yeah. So when it comes to scarcity, dude, like that's my life. Especially like working in Web3 and crypto and buying NFTs. Only thing I experience is scarcity. Is that, oh my god, like I need to buy into this, like I need to ape into this project immediately, otherwise I'm going to miss out, because there's a limited number of them available, there is limited supply, all of that kind of stuff. So that was literally driving my life for a number of years, when I just wanted to capture something that I perceived as something scarce and something immediately attached value to it, right? That it's not going to be available to so many people, which I think is very common in a consumer society.
Oh yeah, like I think scarcity is one of the most powerful ways of marketing as well. Like if you think of all like the high-end cars or brands of like clothing or anything, what they sell mainly is scarcity there. Like there are limited amount of products that you can buy, the scarcity of like the limited amount of people that they can afford and have them. I think scarcity in human nature, it just triggers so deep wound into like fears of like, I need to have that. And that's often, especially in life, we see that scarcity leads to mistakes. Like if you're dating from a place of scarcity, you're most likely to end up with the wrong person. If you're trying to start your business and you are in the scarcity lack of money, you're most likely to get the wrong clients just because you need something. And I feel like the more you need and you conceive this as a need, for me, like I need that, the more you are working with a scarcity mindset. And sometimes, especially like in practical things, yeah, you might, if you need money and you just started your business, yes, you are a kind of this scarcity. But if you operate from a scarcity mindset, most likely you're going to end up doing so many mistakes. Even if you lack something, it's better to operate from a more of like an abundant mindset. And I think that starts mainly from within.
You know, when it comes to this topic, I always think about emotions, because whenever I think about something that I desperately want to have,
yeah,
and you mentioned it yourself that you are going to make a lot of mistakes if you operate from this kind of mindset. And when I usually catch myself doing this. It's just that my emotions literally take it over, right? So you are being extremely emotional when you make that kind of decision. And this is why it's a good idea to remove yourself from that environment, sleep on it, or just get back to it a little bit later, because literally all the chemicals are kind of like making you make that decision in that moment.
Yeah, 100%. The emotional scarcity leads to so many mistakes.
Yeah. So we try to avoid that. Agree with this one. And what do you think about what he said about abundant pleasures can be our most valuable pleasures?
I feel like any pleasure, if we put it in bracket, or joy, let's say, that comes from a place of abundance, is the most valuable ones in life, because you detach.
Can you give an example?
I'll give like a theory before the example. It's like you detach yourself from the need of this emotion. So you experience the emotion from a place of pure joy, pure like acceptance, but without like, I need you to make me feel good, or I need that to make me feel happy. You're completely detached from the emotion that is something that you need to fulfill you as a whole. You already accept the oneness within you and the wholeness within you. So then the emotion comes like as an extra, comes like an add-on in your life, because you're already full, you're already in abundant state with who you are, with what you live. So everything that just comes as a benefit is just there to add on to your life. You're not operating from a place that I just need that. And I can give example, for example, relationships, right?
Oh, yeah.
First example is relationships. When you operate from a place of abundance in a relationship, when you don't need the other person to be happy, you're most likely to pick the right people, because they just add to your life. And when they don't, you just go. That's the perfect example for me, is human relationships. Not only romantic ones, same goes with friendships. When you feel like you need people, or you need something from someone, or someone in general, to fulfill a need inside you, you're not operating from a place of abundance, because you're not operating from a place of wholeness. You're operating from a place that there is a void there, and you need that thing. You need money. You need that person, this partner, this friend, this fame, to fill this gap.
Yeah, you're a half a cup.
Yeah, you're half
right?
a cup.
So that's why when I speak to people who have been single for some time and they have been desperately trying to find a partner because they just don't feel complete, I understand that maybe there are some people out there who operate like that, but at the same time, usually it comes from fear or not being whole. And honestly, I think it's something that's not even fair to the other person.
Yeah.
Because when you get in a relationship with a person with the expectation that that person is going to fill your cup, right? Then you immediately set expectations. And the moment you set expectations, that usually leads to disappointment and then resentment and, all other problems as well.
Exactly. And one of the biggest examples is the serial daters, or the people who rebound
A serial
really fast.
dater.
Yeah, like the people who can't be alone. Like you see this, like some people get out of a relationship and in a couple of weeks they jump into the new one.
Oh, yeah.
Or they dating someone for a couple of months, and the moment they end with, they leave actually the previous date, to jump on the new date, because they constantly need someone to validate them. They
That's
constantly
one
need
thing.
someone.
Or they just cannot sit with their own thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's like one of the perfect examples of this abundance and scarcity perception within yourself. If you constantly feel that the need of validation from others and you cannot give that to yourself, that's why you end up just jumping from one relationship to another constantly, because you need someone to fill that void. You can't sit down with your own thoughts. You can't fully sit down with yourself, because parts of you, and I know that's hard pill to swallow, but parts of you don't truly accept who you are. And you will never find the right people in your life, friends, partners, if you do not first accept who you are. Because even if you do find the right people, when they accept you, you're going to reject them, because you haven't accepted that part of yourself. So when other people will give you this acceptance, it's going to feel disingenuine and it's going to feel too much.
Yeah. Yeah, I think very well said. I kind of feel that we are deviating from the core focus of this paradox, though. But I just want to mention one more thing. When I was saying about what are the different kind of abundant resources that are available for us, that can create so much pleasure. The things that I was thinking
Man,
about,
life.
just like breath,
Yeah.
nature, grounding, like ourselves and each other.
You're
And
alive. What more of
what is it
abundance you
like?
want? You're like you breathe one more day.
One of like 3 trillion, the chance to
To be alive.
to be alive. Yeah, cool. Next one.
We have the resistance paradox, and one of my favorite quotes, very short one for resistance, is the more you resist, the more it persists. I feel the paradox is like an observation about the human condition, particularly during our more youth years, like the formative years. And it's about the idea that when we most need, when we are in the most need for constructive criticism and feedback, usually because of our fragile ego, these hard truths hurt us and we bring the most resistance to them. And that's probably the factor that impairs with growth. Because the constant seek for validation and approval during this fragile ego period, and what some people, they have this for their whole life, actually, they never come out of it. But some of them, as they grow, they'll learn and manage and regulate this. But I feel like resistance comes mainly from the ego side, because you are bringing this resistance to change. You feel so sensitive to some constructive criticism because your ego comes in the way. And then the more you resist to that, the more this thing, the trauma sometimes, or things that you want to improve, but you don't want others to point out to you, or you don't even want to point out to themselves. But this thing, because of your ego, is still persist, and it's going to be there your whole life. It's not going anywhere. It's going to persist, and the more you resist to it, the more it's going to persist. The thing is that a lot of people actually just tend to try to suppress it or ignore it, thinking that it's going to go away.
When I read about the resistance paradox, the first thing that came to mind is acceptance.
Yeah.
Because the initial step to resolving any issue is acceptance, right? If you don't have that, you don't actually acknowledge that the problem is there.
Mm-hmm.
You are never going to fix that, right? And I think the Buddha was also saying that to recognize the source of your suffering is the first step towards relieving from that suffering. And instead of just trying to resist it, accept it, sit with it, and that's the only way you can actually solve it. Otherwise, it just goes back to what you said at the very beginning. If you resist, it persists.
Yeah, I feel acceptance is actually the way to change and the way to eliminate resistance. Because why do you have resistance? You have resistance because there is some factual evidence about something in your life, emotions, like something you're doing wrong with your business, something you're doing wrong with even your fitness journey, like in the gym or your training with whatever you do. And there is some factual evidence there showing you that something has to change here. And your fragile ego comes in the way and say like, no, I believe I'm perfect. I don't need to change that. But this thing is a factual evidence. It's going to keep persisting and keep persisting. And the more you resist, the more you're just stunning your growth. You're just putting a stop there, hard break on your growth. Because now you're just stay there. Because you resist this change, or you resist the feedback that you're getting from your life.
Yeah, but it also can come from a place of fear. That people are afraid. Like, change is scary. Yeah, or facing our problems is scary. But from my experience, the more we face our problems, the smaller our problems actually become.
Ego has many faces. One of them is fear. The ego and the fear, like all these emotions, they never operate from a place of the one that harm you. They do as a byproduct, because life is now constructed in a different way, with some of our primal needs and emotions are not aligned with the day-to-day society in today's world. But they primarily are there to protect you. Like your ego, with a mask of fear, is there to protect you from potential rejection, potential failure that is perceived as a threat to your survival, But they're not there to do intentionally harm to you. So yeah, fear is definitely one of the masks of ego, and it's good to acknowledge it. But once you do this, once you realize that, okay, yeah, this is coming from a place of fear. This is coming like the reason why I don't accept what Adam said to me about how can I improve the X, Y, and Z in my life is coming from a place of ego resistance. Cool. Can I now come to acceptance? Like, what if, just ask this, what if, even though I don't believe this is true, what if I accept it? And what if I actually sit down with myself and try to make it, try to improve it a little bit, or try to take it as part of me, not with judgment, but with part of like, oh, okay, maybe I am a little bit impulsive, let's just say. Maybe I do get angry sometimes on the wrong people. Maybe I do lose it. I'm not emotionally regulating that much. If I accept that, even though I don't believe it's true, and put some work in to try to improve this aspect of myself, what will it change in my life? And sometimes, actually, people might be wrong. So it's not like always you need to accept everything you hear about yourself, but sometimes just question it. Just leave it open. Just question it. Like, some people that care, especially people that care about you, told me that I make impulsive decisions in, let's say, my business life or my dating life. Do I? Don't just instantly bring resistance to it. It's like, nah, man, I'm not. I'm good. Just question and sit down with that thought and see if you're trying to be less impulsive. What changes it's going to bring in your life, if any?
That's an interesting question to debate on its own, because we hear this so many times that you just need to believe yourself and you don't necessarily have to believe everything that other people tell you, right? But if everybody says that you are impulsive, maybe there is something there, right?
This quote about like you need to believe yourself and just ignore whatever it's telling you, just do it. It has some truth in it. Like, I do believe it's important to believe in you and do things, but I think if you take it to the extreme, it just makes you completely naive about life, because we develop in life with getting feedback from others as well.
And you're blind to feedback.
You're blind. Yeah. You're totally blind.
And even when people come in your life and trying to help you, you just completely like close them up. Like, no, yeah. I'm good. Right?
It makes you oblivious. You can't be oblivious if you want to grow. Yes, believe in yourself and believe in your ability to overcome whatever it is there. But just listen to some people.
It's so interesting to see, because I know people with a growth mindset. And when you look at so many aspects of their lives, they are growing, right? But when it comes to their personality, they seem to be super resistant to the feedback that they're receiving from the outside, especially when it comes to how their behavior changes in different kind of situations, right? So, yeah.
And that happens mainly, which I think is a big part of like, we're going to mention it later in the knowledge paradox, because some people, when they obtain success and power, it makes you a bit arrogant. And that's the trap. Like, once you build yourself up and you get this power, if you become too arrogant and think that you're better than others, that's the biggest trap of ego. Like, if you think you worked on your ego and you become a better person and a growth, with a growth mindset, and now you are more like in alignment with your true self, and you know what you do, you're on your purpose and all that, that's great for you. That's all great. But if that it gives you like a sense of entitlement and a sense of superiority, that's the biggest like point or area of your life that you need to work on. If you lose your humbleness as you grow, that's the biggest sign that you need to work on your ego.
I think that's a very important thing to mention, and that's also something that I remind myself of quite often. Stay humble, especially when things are going well.
Yeah.
Right? Stay humble, because it's not just about displaying your confidence, but it's also about staying relatable and put you down from the pedestal. And that also makes you more relatable to people, and people are going to more likely to resonate with you as well. So I think that's a good reminder.
Yeah.
Should we take the next one?
Go ahead.
Which would be the vulnerability paradox.
Vulnerability.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Just a second. So, the vulnerability paradox, we believe showing our whole selves will scare others away, when in reality it draws them closer. Yeah. And I have a personal story there to mention. So, I left Hungary almost 15 years ago.
Ooh,
And
that's a long time.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
So, obviously, when you spend this much time away, you are going to lose a lot of friends, right? And only the true ones are going to stay in your life. But at the same time, you are going through so many different kind of experiences that eventually you start feeling that you are kind of like growing apart, right? And then you start questioning things like, are we really that close? Do we even have the same interest, right? And for many, many years, whenever we had our scheduled call on the monthly basis, we were talking about what happened. So it was almost like a brief summary. I did this, I did that, work is like this, work is like that, girlfriend is like that, blah, 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 right? But it was always like super surface level. Only occasionally we went deeper into certain subjects. And last year, I started to feel that things are changing again. I started to feel that my friends are actually closer to me than ever before. And it was only because of one simple act. I dared to be more vulnerable, and I dared to share the things that were really that was really occupying my mind and soul, and the way I felt about how everything is going on, what are the different kind of struggles I have. And you know what happened? Every single one of them confirmed it. Dude, I'm going through the exact same thing. Or I've been through this 6 months ago, and I had no one else to talk to about this thing, right? And what it resulted is that it created that kind of sense of belonging. So me being vulnerable with the people who I trust, I'm not saying that you should put all of your shit out there on the internet, because I think that's a different issue. But again, like if you have those kind of people in your life that you can trust and you value and you treasure, be vulnerable with them, because you don't want to hold that mask in front of your face forever. It's exhausting. And trust me, they're just going to appreciate you more. They are going to resonate with you more. And I think people genuinely crave to hear our stories, and embracing imperfection and rawness adds depth to our stories. So I think it's important to embrace this as much as possible.
And it makes you more authentic, real human. Even from my other podcasts, one of the greatest feedback that me and my podcast partner we got is like how vulnerable we let ourselves be on public, like saying some of the things we overcome, and it makes it more relatable. Like when you especially listen to people that you feel that they educate you to see like the truth behind the mask completely, like not even wearing masks, just be completely themselves. And I feel, because that has changed over the years in my perception, but now I see so much strength to people who allow themselves to be vulnerable in front of others, that they are not afraid to show vulnerability, but not in a sense that they ask for comfort, in a sense that like they are okay in being vulnerable. But because in my eyes, I see those people with such a bravery and inner strength themselves that they are okay to be vulnerable in front of anyone, because they can handle it, because they know that they can overcome this, and they're okay to show you that I'm not going to wear a mask, that's who I am. Like the people who even cry over small things, as like not only from sadness but sometimes from like happiness as well, like they are completely in touch with their true and vulnerable self.
Where do you draw the line? So
what is the difference between someone being too emotional and being someone allow themselves to be vulnerable?
Exactly. Where do you draw the line?
I don't think there is a line. I think that depends on the people. Like some people, and that's okay. Like we need to accept others for who they are. Like some people tend to feel and experience emotions. That there are studies also that prove that some people experience emotions higher than others. So me and you, we can be both vulnerable. Let's say if you could measure vulnerability on the same level. So let's say we are both aligned with our vulnerability to 100%. And something that happens can make you cry, but me be okay with it. Just feel it in me, but not have the tendency to be fully emotional with it. But that doesn't mean we're not both in our vulnerable state or you are acting too emotional. It's just we experience something on a different intensity. So I don't think it's wise to generalize something so complex as human emotions because every person experiencing it differently. So that's also not good to judge people for how they express their emotions and themselves in their vulnerable state. Because it doesn't mean that person is too vulnerable or too emotional. Because we do not understand or we cannot even comprehend how they experience them in their own body. Because it's such a complex topic.
Yeah, I do think that that's a very beautiful way of looking at it. But when I look at other examples out there, I just want to mention two things. One of them is that I think some people started to take advantage of this and they put vulnerability out there almost as like
but that's not
a tool to manipulate people.
Yeah, that's
right?
Victim. That's
So
different.
But still,
what I mentioned at the beginning of vulnerability is when someone becomes vulnerable without the need to ask for comfort. Because the people who become too vulnerable and seek your comfort, not even directly ask, but you can see that it's going somewhere there. That's victim. That's manipulation tactic. And it's usually used a lot from like people who tend to be narcissistic or manipulative. They use their sub stories to create somehow a vulnerable state between them and you, so you can connect more with them, and then they kind of seek your validation and you seek your comfort because that's how they get you hooked. But that's not someone just being truly vulnerable if they seek you or trying to get something out of you. That's just them putting too much of a sob story and playing the victim to get power over you by not exactly
triggering empathy.
Yeah, triggering your empathy too much. And it's really a big trap, and it's not in the episode, so I'm just going to make a quick mention, but it's really big trap because people who have these narcissistic tendencies, or they are generally manipulative towards others, they're going to use this. They're going to try to use this sob story to make you empathize them because they want to test your empathy. They want to see how deep you can empathize with them and how deep you can give them discomfort, because the more you do, the more power they have over you. But that's different.
How do you spot this?
By how much need the person has the moment they become vulnerable for you to give them comfort. But it's not easy sometimes because these kind of people, they're so charismatic and they wear such a delicate, crafted masks that you can't at the beginning. Even if you need to be aware of their patterns. But even if you are, the first times, you cannot spot it. Because they can play the mask of like being vulnerable, but with not asking your comfort. But deeply they need it. So you cannot tell it instantly, but if this is a repetitive pattern, or you see it later on down the line, or they repeat the story, or they go around and tell you other stories that they put themselves in the victim position too much, that's usually like a red flag. If they put the story that they're clearly a victim on the story, but they don't present themselves too much as a victim, usually that's a green flag. Because it means that I'm vulnerable by sharing you a story that I got hurt or that I failed so hard, but I don't seek for your empathy or pity. It's okay for me to have it to a certain level, but I don't put myself in a place that, oh, look at me, this shit happened to me. And now I'm like that. No, they're more of like, yeah, this should happen to me. It got me too emotional. But I'm okay now. I'm doing well.
Yeah. So that was one of the things. The other things was which kind of like very related to what you were just saying with the example. Like, look at me. Yeah. This is what happened to me. Right? And I'm not trying to make fun of that, but because again, I understand that everybody's going through some stuff. Everybody have their own shit to deal with.
Yeah, and some people need some comfort, and it's not bad.
Exactly. So that's why it's just more like a personal question from my side. Like, where do you draw the line? Like, how vulnerable is it okay to be? Because let me give you another example that I appreciate when people trust me with their issues, or when they feel comfortable around me to share those kind of things with me. And I appreciate when they are able to display and show vulnerability in my presence. But I don't like those people who just like dump everything on you, right? And they keep on like dumping. And then after like 1 hour, like spending 1 hour with that person, I'm already like completely drained. And then he or she is like, oh, thank you, it's been great talking, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, where do you draw the line?
If that happens all the time with this kind of people, you probably draw the line there, because that's not something you can offer to them.
Yeah, usually I set my boundaries from my side. Yeah.
But like as I said, like people are experiencing things differently, and also like there are situations sometimes. So even like a person who's not vulnerable all the time, they can go through something that they have the need to overexpress or over being vulnerable with something. So the lines are more blurry than a general line. Like to say, you can draw the line depending on I would say with how you feel, and it's better to take it more on your side, on your point of view, and be like, nah, that's something that I don't want to deal with. But again, if someone is like your partner or your brother or like a very close friend, and they are in the need and they become too vulnerable, that is different. Yeah. So that's why I'm saying like the lines are so blurry. Like it depends on the situation, the human in general, the work they have done, and like that there are many factors that can influence this line. But I would say take as much as you want to take from, like, if you're emotional punching bug sometimes, without compromising yourself, but always have an open eye to what's going on underneath. Because if someone is actually dealing with some shit right now in their life, like their business failed, or yeah, that's different. But if someone has like a tendency in general with whatever it is to just be vulnerable and just throw everything on you, even small things, just to make themselves feel better after throwing it out and gaining benefit of your energy, then it's probably a dynamic in a relationship, friendship, relationship, whatever it is, that it's not going to work long run.
Yeah, just to close on that topic, when that happens, I just tend to set clear boundaries.
Yeah.
Especially if something, let's say an issue is very repetitive, right? Let's say that you hate your job and you want to leave your job and you keep on talking shit about your job, and I hate this, I hate my boss, I hate what I do, I hate, right? And you keep on just like sharing, you're being vulnerable about the things that you are going through, but you don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Right? So this is where I draw the line myself, like, okay, man.
Enough.
We've been through this. We've been through this 5 times, or we have been talking about this for a year. What did you do? Nothing? Great. Like, I have nothing else to add here. Right? Either you're going to take action, or you're just going to stop complaining about it, because I'm not willing to listen to this anymore.
I'm not willing to give you my advice for 20th time in the last 4 years for the same situation that the answer is obvious. And when you mentioned this, like, funnily enough, I had a few, but one very distinctive friend that I can remember in my life, that for the last 4 years, like that happened a few years ago also, but like for 4 years, 5 years, I remember the topic of the conversation every time was going there as well. Like, I hate my job. I'm not making enough money from that. They put me work too many hours. I don't have time to focus on myself, to do anything about myself, working out or anything. And I was like, bro, like, on the first times, I was willing to be there, give him my support, give him my advice when he needed or whatever. But after, like, let's say the 10th time, I was done. I was like, don't speak to me until you quit your job about this topic anymore. I was like, that's a boundary. And it might sound mean, but we have spoke about the same thing for so many times. Like, the answer is obvious. You need to quit this fucking job. You hate it. It makes you miserable. It drains you spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and physically. Like, what? What do you expect?
The reason why I'm laughing because it's so relatable to me as well, because I've been there.
Oh.
I have been the complainer.
Oh, you've been the complainer.
I've been the complainer, and a friend of mine, her name is Alexandria. We met in Uluwatu, and I was complaining about my job repetitively. And then one day I remember that we are sitting in this restaurant, and again, like, you know, great, I just started the topic. and she was like, stop, we talked about this. We've been through this 3 times, what did you do? I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
And that really taught me this lesson that, oh, wow, okay. This is actually a very good way to set your own boundaries and also to stop being a complainer. If there is something that really bothers you, then you are going to take action.
Yeah. And sometimes we need these people that give us a slap to wake you up a little bit, like, hey,
yeah,
you did this so many times. Enough.
Yeah. But, you know, it also got me thinking that maybe the situation is not that bad, right? So if it was worse, then people are more likely to act on it and change their circumstances, which is another paradox.
With the next one I was about to, that's a perfect time now to introduce the next paradox. But yeah, like people only refuse to change when the pain they feel from the change perceived as greater than the pain they feel from the current situation.
Yeah.
That's like one of the greatest quotes I've heard about the change. I don't know who said it first, but I think I heard it from Alex Hormozy that mentioned that, like, you only change when the pain you feel in your current situation becomes greater than the perceived fear of change.
Yeah.
And I totally agree on that.
Cool. Shall we take the next one?
The change paradox. So a quick intro to that is another quote which said, like, yesterday I was smart, so I wanted to change the world. Today I'm wise and I'm changing myself.
So what is the change paradox?
The change paradox is about everyone wants to change the world around them, or they want to change others, or they want to see change. But how many of us take some time to be the change that we want to see in this world? The paradoxical theory of change holds on what one becomes truly aware of now, and then the change unfolds on your way. You need to be aware of what's happening today in your life and what changes you want to see in yourself. Accept, it's very highly related to the resistance paradox we mentioned earlier about acceptance. So accept the resistance, accept the truth, accept the facts that's happening. Like, hey, that's happening in front of you right now. Okay, cool. Now, what's the mini stepping stones to start the change? And sometimes it might feel like shameful as well, because like sometimes you need to break a task or a big change in your life. You need to break it to such a small steps that you feel like kind of, oh, that's ridiculously for me to try to do this small change. But it always adds up to the bigger change in your life once you start doing it.
When it comes to this topic, I was thinking about 2 things: change yourself and trying to change others. So instead of trying to change others, we should definitely retain that energy and work on ourselves and, be the change that we want to see. But when we think about when we want people to change, it's almost selfish that you expect someone to become the version that we envision for them, right? Yeah. And then if they fail to do so, then it just actually creates resentment and hate and
you get disappointed. But
exactly.
But that's like completely on you, because we cannot change others. We can't. We can only change ourselves. We can be the change you want to see in others. You can lead by example for the world and others, but you cannot change them. They have to be willing to change themselves. And if you be that example, they will follow you. But don't try actively to change others. You either accept or go.
That's why you need to lead by example, right? If you want to trigger a change, be the change. And then other people are going to take inspiration from that change and they are going to follow you.
Only the ones who are willing to.
Yeah.
It's not your responsibility to change the ones that they don't.
And I think it's also perfectly applicable in the workplace as well,
Mhm.
because obviously different kind of workplaces can have like very stressful, like they can create a stressful environment, and you want to do your job. There's expectations, and you're under pressure, all of that things, and this is always something that I try to look for, whether the person is willing to be the person who is going to change and take initiative, rather than always expecting that their boss, their leader, the colleagues, or the HR is going to change things, because people have the tendency that everybody is fucked up
Oh, yeah,
except me,
except me.
right?
Yeah.
So
It's hard to take accountability because change, that's the thing that it requires the most, is take accountability and see the mirror, stare yourself in the eye in the mirror, because other people sometimes are mirroring us, like they become mirrors of some of the things you need to work on yourself. But it's hard because what happens is, like, most of us wants to change others. We want the world to change, but how many of us actually take the time to reflect, stare ourselves in the mirror, and be willing to become this change we want to see? Be willing to be that change for ourselves.
people are not even honest with themselves, because it's better just to blame others than
Oh, fuck yeah.
ourselves. Yeah,
Of course.
for me
Why
it's
would-
easier
why-
to
why
blame
would I?
you,
Why
or
would I?
yeah,
If I blame you, I don't feel shame. I don't
Yeah.
feel guilt, which shame and guilt is like two of the most powerful emotions for humans that make them feel, let's say, bad about themselves.
which ones?
Shame and guilt.
Shame and
are
guilt.
so powerful emotions in our
I
body.
have this here. Oh yeah, you're right. Shame and guilt. That's exactly at the bottom of the.
Yeah. You have
Yeah.
it there. So if I just blame you, if I create a sub story and make you the villain in my story, whatever it happened between us, if I just twist all the events and everything in my head and make it look on you and blame it on you, I don't have to take any responsibility for that. No matter if my actions hurt
It's beyond you.
Yeah, it's on you. Like, even if I hurt you with my actions, like, it's because you did this to me, so I had to. That's the
Yeah.
single most important evidence of something is wrong with you. If you justify your misbehavior because someone treated you differently, like, that explains everything about you.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what, like, yeah, you might did something, but what I did back. But it's easier, just blame it all on Adam. Like, oh, Adam, you did this to me, so now I'm doing this to you. So because you did that, let's blame. Just you blame it on others, and you take zero accountability, zero responsibility. You bring zero remorse for what you did, and you just carry on living your life in this naive state of, oh yeah, all is good with me. But there is a big motherfucking but there. It always, unless you have like some specific mental conditions, it always catches you up. At some point in your life, you're going to have this realization. It's going to be sooner or later, it doesn't matter, but at some point, it's going to catch you back up. It's going to have a different face, not Adam's, someone else. And it's going to happen again and again. And at some point, you're going to be like, the emotions from what you did, or the emotions from what you're trying to avoid, and the accountability you're trying to avoid, is going to catch you up. And that will be way harder after, because then it's going to give you the clarity of everything that happened even before that.
Yeah.
So better take the accountability today.
Cool. Should we move to the next one?
You don't want to comment anything more to that?
I take accountability, man. Like, you're not going to find anybody else who takes more accountability than I am.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah. And I
Usually.
think it, like, also our physical state also kind of represents that, because, we take accountability for, let's say, like, not taking care of ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what happened to me before. I clearly remember. When was it? It was 2013, 2014. I was living in Denmark. It was somewhere between Christmas and New Year's, and I was hanging out with my friend Peter. We were playing Xbox for a couple of hours, having a couple of beers and stuff.
Xbox.
Yeah, it was amazing. I loved that. And then, a bit intoxicated, I went home, and I was just about to get to bed, and like, I just saw my reflection in the mirror. And I was already like, that was the time when I started losing my hair. That's when I gained a lot of weight. And I'm looking at myself in the mirror and I'm like, you are a bald fat fuck. I was like 100% real with myself. But that was the
That's what it
only
takes.
thing that allowed me to change, right? I took accountability for the mistakes I made before. I got real with myself. I acknowledged that there is an issue. I accepted that issue. And that's the one that actually put me on the path to change.
Yeah.
Just, yeah.
That was brutal honesty and radical
Brutal
acceptance with my
honesty.
current situation. Like, wow. That takes like a lot of strength to
Yeah.
accept it. One last thing, or the paradox of change that's worth mentioning is like that you cannot fake the change. It has to come naturally. You need to surrender and put in like the inner work to make it happen. And even like paradoxically, you can say that change happens when as a byproduct.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like don't like just seek for the change. It comes from a byproduct of being something that you're not slowly and from your growth. So as you grow, change naturally occurs in your life. You cannot fake though the change. You're gonna try to be something you're not. You need to allow yourself accept everything, as we just said, like accept it and make the steps, make the inner work, and then the change will happen.
But just to build on top of that, the incident that I told you about, that I became super real with myself back in 2013, 2014, that was great. It triggered a great action. I got back into shape, all of that kind of stuff, which I was able to keep for a number of years. But then after that, shit happened again. And I went downhill again. I got fat. And then, hopefully never again. But the difference between the change that I went through in 2013 versus the change that I recently experienced is because at that time I was trying to fix the external, right? I did not really focus on improving myself internally. I didn't face my problems. I didn't face my traumas and my fears and all of that kind of stuff. I was not working on my inner self, right? Versus this time, I prioritized inner work. And then literally all the progress I have made internally manifested in a physical form almost like a byproduct.
Yeah.
Right.
And it changed you externally as well. And
it changed me
your
externally
life,
big
your
time.
relationships, the connections, your work, everything.
And it's way more sustainable because I was just still like trying to mask that hurt, vulnerable person who was full of doubt and insecurities. Right. But this time I was like, okay, now this time we're going to do this right.
Yeah.
Why am I like that? Why do I have that fear? Why am I insecure about those?
We started from the inside out.
Exactly.
Rather than the outside.
Focusing on growth from the inside out. And when they say that
that's deep,
that's the path, I know it's real because I'm the living testament to that.
Yeah. I completely relate to that. That's how it happened with me too. Like I was in one of the most worst states of my life when I would say like I did proper shadow work within myself twice in my life. And probably we can mention this in a different episode more deeply. But in the first time that I was like properly depressed after a period of just, let's say, not living the best life, the all external change, better connections, more success, growth, or whatever that came in my life, it only happened when I stared myself in the mirror and I wanted to give a hand to lift me up out of that shithole. It didn't happen external. I didn't like the external influence the internal. It was completely the other way around. Like I first started with the internal. I first started building my self-esteem again, my belief in myself again. And then the external just followed as a byproduct.
Now look at you now. You're a Greek god.
Thank you. I still believe that we're always like a work in progress, but I'm to a point now in my life that I say I am proud of who I am today and what I am and about my character most of all. I may still want to improve external things and internal things, but at least I can say happily that I'm proud of the person I am.
And you should be.
Thank you.
I always consider myself as a good judge of character, and I judge you, and you passed.
You passed.
Yeah, I see you, man, and I appreciate you.
I'm thinking, so we wrap the episode around the 5 paradoxes and then do the 5 ones in part 2 because we're already an hour running.
We can do that.
Yeah.
So why don't we jump on one more?
Yeah. Just mention one more.
Okay. The approval paradox.
Oh.
The more you want someone's approval, the harder it is to get it. Right? And it usually comes from insecurity and neediness. But for example, like when I think about it, the moment you stop worrying about failure or you start being more of yourself, everything kind of just falls into place, right? And instead of trying to get other people's approval, just focus on building genuine human connections and deliver value, and approval is going to follow. So I just wanted to tell like a very quick story here that when I moved into this house, for me, that made a very big difference. Just the people I was surrounded by, and also we did different kind of activities together, we traveled together, we went to the warrior movement together, all of those kind of things that really helped me to create that kind of brotherhood that I needed, that I didn't need to seek for anybody's approval. I can just be me, and when I saw that I'm actually accepted and I loved and I appreciated for the person who I am, that was just liberating. And I could just really tap into my own power and just embrace the person who I truly am. And then everything just started to move, right? And it's because when you are trying to seek for approval, I think that's also true, very much true in business as well, right? When you try to get a client, it's very important to understand that you are not the one who is needing to get their approval. You need to act from a place of abundance and confidence, right? And they feel that, and people gravitate towards those kind of individuals.
100%.
And even if you talk about it in a business settings, towards those kind of deals or service providers.
Yeah, 100%. In like any business setting, sales setting, or whatever, you are way more likely to book when you don't act from a place of need. And especially when this comes naturally. And one probably tip I can give that helped me at the beginning of my sales experience with my business was like, what do I actually offer back? Like to reflect on your service and your product or whatever it is, like how my service, product, or whatever it is that I'm offering is actually helping these people. And if you believe to your product, if you believe to your service, and you know that this thing changes this person's life, then what's the price you can actually put on it? No matter the price, you're always going to feel in the abundance of just saying it. And you're never going to feel the need that I need this person. Yeah, sometimes you need, especially at the beginning of your business, you need some clients to make some revenue and keep the business running. But even at the beginning, it's better to just self-sustain with whatever else than act from a place of scarcity. You don't want these people that come to you because you are in a place of scarcity. And it also makes you way less likely to book good deals. Reflect on your product and your service. What do you actually offer and give? And if that is something good, never compromise. And believe it, and that will help you realize like, oh, yeah, I don't actually need them. They need my product as much as I need them to work with me. So there is a win-win situation. Usually people tend to act from a place of neediness in like business setting when they don't realize their worth, the worth of their product or themselves. So then they only seek Omnic to get you. But no, it's a transaction. And that also comes from the place of I want to seek win-lose. Because I think they win and then you buy, you lose. But that's not true. The best business setup is win-win. And they also win. Like if your product is shit, yeah, they lose and you win. So I can see why you don't have the confidence in it. But knowing how great my product is, have like hundreds of testimonials, but even if not, like believing it, how I know that this is going to change your life. So I'm offering you something and you win by getting it. And you give me your money and I win by profiting my business. And the same setup, paradoxically, it works well with relationships as well and dating. You see this so many times.
You as a person being the product in that context, right?
But when you approach like a person you're attracted to in dating, if you go with a mindset of I want to get them, sets up for failure. And also, even if you don't fail and they like you, it sets up that for future failure, because you start from the place of scarcity anyway. But what if you're approaching someone with a mind of like, let's see if I want them. I'm going to give them value by giving me in there. Not from a place of arrogance. I'm not saying this to be arrogant about it, but realize your value as a human. Giving my friendship or my partnership to someone else, it's going to give them value in the life if you have done the work and if you know how valuable you are as a person, right? Now, they may have value too. So it's again a win-win situation. But if you feel like you're not so worthy, and then you're approaching someone that you feel is more than you, even that is a business setup or dating setup or whatever setup it is, you're always going to operate from a place of scarcity because you pursuing them. You're not going to give a win-win situation.
I think it all boils down to the confidence, that how confident you are in yourself, how much you are willing to be just yourself, right? If you come across as someone who is very content and dares to be just simply you, right? Then if you do it without the need of competing or comparing yourself to other people are going to see that, and they are going to see that, oh, this dude has the balls just to walk away if it's not aligned with him as a person and with his values, right? And I think genuinely people appreciate those kind of individuals.
Yeah. And to change the mindset from you're not asking anything, you're offering. You're offering your business and service to the other people who they will win from it. You're offering a dating or a friendship to another person who they will get benefit out of it because you have things to offer. You're offering, you're not just asking. So I think like if people change their perception of I'm not asking, I'm actually offering in a win-win situation there, then the ability, as you said, to walk away becomes easier, and the conversation and the flow of everything becomes easier. The confidence is higher anyway. But before of all that, you first need to realize your worth, your value. When it comes to dating, for example, this value is self-esteem, self-worth. When it comes to business, is product worth. And self-worth
how well your product is, how much is going to deliver,
and your services,
your numbers, all of that stuff. And man, I can tell you that the moment I started to develop confidence in the product that I was offering, and I knew exactly what it's worth to people, and when they were just not willing to pay that, I was like, that's okay, like I understand that you wanna still go out there shopping a little bit, talk to some other people, that's totally fine. I'm going to be here, this is what I'm offering, I'm totally fine, but maybe this is just not a good fit. And
and sometimes that's true. It's not a good fit.
Sometimes that's true. Actually, many times that's true. But they can see that you are confident, and they can see that you believe in the product, and you're not willing to give it at, let's say, a crazy discounted rate because you know what the value of that product is. So they also start believing that, oh, actually, this must be valuable.
But sometimes you may have like the best product and it's just not the right fit for this person. You may have
absolutely, it happens.
The one of the greatest examples I can give you that is like you may have your own small farm, raise your own cows with the best quality food, getting sunlight every day and walk freely on the grass. So when you create the steaks out of this cow, you have like the best probably ribeye and the best like pieces of meat someone can buy in your country area or whatever. And then you go to a market on a village that is primarily vegans.
Ooh, do we want to get there?
No, I mean, you can have the best steak, the best cuts of meat with such a great raising cows and everything. But you're going to a village market that is full of vegans. You have a really good product, just they're not compatible with the other person, with the other people there. So you can still have great product, but just not be the right fit.
Yeah. You know.
Doesn't mean that your product is not good, or the people that are not appreciating what you offer. They do. They just don't like it. They just have different taste.
I think it's all about marketing and packaging. Because like Mateus always cracks me with this. I'm like, what are you eating? He's like, oh, vegan chicken. That meaning that the chicken was vegan, so
Yeah.
he's actually eating vegan chicken.
Yeah.
But anyway, jokes aside, yeah, very well said. So you need to know your worth. You need to know exactly where your worth is actually being seen, right? The same way as a bottle of water. How much you pay for a bottle of water in the store, at the airport, on the airplane, right? Exactly the same product, but different pricing.
Different environment that makes different pricing.
Right.
So sometimes your worth is still there, but you're just in the wrong environment to be perceived.
Right. So this is what? Part 1. We are going to continue with part 2.
Yeah.
There's still a lot to cover.
There's still a lot to cover, and we're not going to make this episode 2 hours.
That's okay.
So I'm going to wrap it up here.
Cool.
Stay tuned for the part 2.
Yeah, that's the part.
It's going to be the next episode after that.